Okay, so I'm not expecting anyone to jump into this. I just decided to sit here as I'm watching a baseball game late and have some fun. Like, pull up the data I would look at and talk about, and thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss conference tournaments. I'm not sure why that just went away. I guess I have to keep it up on here. But it's been a while since I used OBS. Camera looks a little funky. Hey, whatever. But I'm going to kind of show how it is I go about doing a mock draft, and it's conference tournament time. What better time while I watch the Guardians here. I'm not actually watching a college baseball game. I'll be plenty of time to do that over the rest of this weekend. But I thought the fun thing with this is to literally use the tools in my hand and kind of show the who, what, where, why, and all of this. So without further ado, let's just come here and look at the Cleveland Guardians. Now, obviously, as the host of Locked On Guardians, this is the team I know the best. So if we come here and just look at them recently, you have Ralphie, DeLauder. Campbell's a first rounder, but he's also supplemental pick. It's a little bit different. Gavin Williams, Carson Tucker. I feel like you got to throw out almost everything about 2020. Tanner Burns, Daniel Espino, Bo Naylor. The real interesting thing in this run of players here is, I think starting about here with Brady Aiken, injury prone. Benson, fine. Torres, there were some concerns about injury. Hankins had injury concerns in his draft year. Bo Naylor, fine. Daniel Espino had injury concerns. Tanner Burns, there weren't injury concerns, but there was concerns he couldn't maintain velocity. Carson Tucker was pretty clean profile. Gavin Williams, there were injury concerns. Campbell, pretty clean profile. DeLauder, injury concerns. And Ralphie, no injury concerns, but definitely positionary concerns in general with him. So they've bounced around a bit, but as you can see, it was heavy high school and then more college guys than last year they went high school. When you're picking 1-1, I did the work recently, you don't want to go high school. You just don't. You're less likely to get a good player, and you are more likely to get a star college player than a good high school player. So what is Cleveland like? To me, this is a 1A, 1B class. They like guys who perform well on the Cape. That has been one of their biggest indicators. If you go through and look at so many of their guys, Cape data is important, up the middle is important, and contact rates. I know people get mad, but Bazana's the guy. He's just the safest player in this draft, maybe one of the safest guys I've ever seen, while still having a plus upside. He is the player that stands out. When I look at everything Cleveland wants, it's him. For lack of a better word, he is the guy. The Cleveland Guardians, it almost feels like he's created in a lab when you look at someone who's into the analytics, has high contact data, works hard, high performance on the Cape. In this case, you have the Reds. Condon should hit a boatload of home runs down there. I don't think you want to overthink it. It should be those two guys in the top two spots. When you do go look at the Reds' recent first-round data, pull it up here, you will see that they are another team that doesn't have a necessarily set style, but they do take college players. We do see quite a few recently in there. Cam Collier was a high school guy, even though it's JUCO. He was reclassified, kind of went the route of Bryce Harper. But you look at McLean, and then they've been kind of back and forth. They do, Louder was a high pick in 23. And you're going through some of these other not quite as high picks, and it's sliding talent. They paid Collier a lot of money to slide. McLean was a guy who many of us thought would and could be off the board before then. So that's kind of the MO here, is sliding talent. I don't know if it's necessarily sliding talent, but when you're looking at who's there, it's that's what stood out. So Colorado Rockies. Power. Probably unsurprisingly. Now, they've been very college heavy for the most part. They had this little run here, like when they took Veen and Benny Montgomery and Drew Romo, and they don't have a lot to show for this little run of guys. Jordan Beck has gotten to the big leagues. Sterling Thompson, Gabriel Hughes is hurt, Dollander. They like college performers of late. And then the other thing is to go look at their class last year, because it's all college. They took one high school guy in the 18th round. College performers, kind of college names too. Like if you're really falling deeply, Sean Sullivan, Cole Carrig, Jack Mahoney, Isaiah Cope, Kyle Karros, Cade Denton, Seth Halverson. Like these were all relatively known names. And, Wimmer is really a guy I hadn't spent that much time on. That's where you start to get a little bit off. But yeah, this is a college heavy team. So if we come back over here, it's like, who's the college guy that they would be likely to take? And I'm a bit conflicted because it feels like if you're going for power, there's certainly a name that stands out. But we've also seen some shifting on boards in terms of what tier are the top tiers of guys. And for me, I really come down to Montgomery or Caglione here. Like if you're just going pure power, Caglione's interesting. I think, they have gone college pitchers the last 2 years, so maybe that's Hagen Smith. There's a top 3 in this class. And last year there was a definite focus on pitching, and the year before was a focus on pitching. And I think in some regards, that has been what we are seeing with this team. So it's those 3. Well, actually 4, because Burns is kind of, in some regards, more their style of pitcher. And I'm going to actually, this is one of the picks, it's the first hard one. It's the first shifting point, because there are about 4 guys it could be. And then watch it be none of those 4, because that's the way baseball works. But going through, looking at what they look like, looking at what they like, having had their pitcher focus, I am going to lead Chase Burns today. Of late, I've had Caglione there a lot. I just think, they saw Burns when they were seeing Dollander a year ago, if their scouts were there for the weekend. And his stuff is unbelievable. And there are people who are really buying in, and understandably so. He's been fantastic. I personally like Smith a little bit more, but I get why there are those buying in at this point with Chase Burns. Shouldn't minimize these. So keep that up. Oakland. So Oakland last year, incredibly conservative, at least early on. This was not a team that was, after, I guess I was focused on Lasco, and I guess at this point I think just Jacob Wilson was at 6. You're just not going for ceiling at all. Then they took, some interesting players with Naylor and Miller with Bloodlines. Lasco was a performer at Rutgers, and then all college. And if you look at their recent picks, they've mostly been high picks because, they've been terrible. We have Wilson, Cusack, Max Muncy, Soderstrom. They have gone at points a little more high school. So that high pick a year ago, though, and some of these other, Austin Beck in the top 10, Kyler Murray in the top 10. The top 10 has not been kind to them. AJ Puck, who they didn't hold on to. Michael Choice before that. Top 10, not been great for Oakland. When you look at who is on the board at this point in time, one of the big things for Oakland for a long time, more under Billy Beane, was up-the-middle athletes. Well, there aren't a lot of up-the-middle types in this class. So, and then kind of becomes, what is your definition of athlete? Like, does foot speed have to be part of it? Because that shifts things as well. A year ago, they went pretty safe. So the safe players at this point are Weatherholt. There's Montgomery. There's Nick Kurtz. And I think they're going to be a college performer here. And when I look at it, I think Montgomery is the guy to gamble with. I still think it's too early for some of the other pieces. I don't know if he's clearly number 3 guy. I think there's a chance that maybe someone like Tibbs could sneak up if they want to really save some money. But Montgomery right now to Oakland, which I think is someone the White Sox would have liked, but he is off the board. Speaking of the White Sox, just to remind you of their recent picks. They were the most conservative team in baseball for a long time. Go back to Courtney Hawkins, Tim Anderson, and then all 4-year players. They were the team I could pick who they were going to draft. I got both Andrew Vaughn and Nick Madrigal right in August, just because they had such a clear profile. Now we saw a little more high ceiling risks with Montgomery and Schultz, and those have paid off. And Gonzalez is rebounding. That was the case, I think, just of a sliding talent. There's a point in time where Gonzalez was viewed as a sure top 5 pick, and then he ended up going 15. And I don't think that was a bad pick. There are those who kind of ribbed them for that selection. I am not in agreement with that personally. So if you look at the White Sox, I think Montgomery would be interesting. I think this could be one of the first places we see a prep player go. I think there's a world where Tibbs makes a lot of sense here. If they still have some of that old scouting approach about avoiding Ks, as Tibbs, I believe, has more home runs than strikeouts. But I think when you're looking kind of for who's the top talent, who's really good here, I think it's Hagen Smith. And he's number 3 on my personal board. He's fantastic. I think he's value. Okay, Kansas City. Kansas City Royals are another team that I've had a hard time projecting the last few years. Because, especially under... Now, it's changed a little bit since Moore isn't there anymore, who just... he went a lot of different ways. We look at recently, it's been prep, Gavin Gross. It's kind of surprise prep. Past few years, last year's class in general. Mitchell, I think for a lot of us was a big surprise, and they came back with Wolters, and they went a lot into the high school grouping. And specifically when you're look at how they spent their money. It's the high school players. Yes, Carson Rockford got a decent amount, but Jared Dickey late, Hunter Owen, but most of it went to the high school guys. So question is, are they willing to go high school here? With, it looks like, a team of talent that is starting to ascend. Do you want to risk pulling back a bit and waiting on a guy, or do you want to get someone who's quicker to the big leagues? I think I've read that they're mostly on college guys, but I'm pretty sure I read that a year ago. That's why I often like to look at the data of performance rather than the rumor mill. And this is a team that trusted their scouts. Again, to go back to the placement, the other thing is to see where they're taking from. We got Illinois, Texas, Connecticut. So nothing too super, diving into one state. And then the year before that was all college guys. And then high school late. And I believe, I'm trying to remember when Piccolo took over. But we have, Connecticut. There's not anyone from Connecticut to grab this year. Kansas, Missouri, New Jersey, Mississippi. We're not really seeing too much of a set single area. So, again, who do you like? If you think Nick Kurtz is a guy who should be long gone, I mean, to me, he stands out at this point in the draft. I wish I could sit back and just be like, hey, let's put him here just to annoy my co-host on Locked On Guardians, Justin Latta, because that would be a nightmare scenario for him. Just want to have my correct list over here. But I do think that I lean a little bit more prep here, just from the perception of that's what they did a year ago. And I tend to lean into recency data, and Connor Griffin is a really interesting, talented player. Kind of reminds you, I don't want to say reminds you of when you took Bobby Witt, but like some of that upside and ceiling and the it could go wrong, as always with any prep player. But I like the ceiling with that pick and what he can do. St. Louis Cardinals. It's kind of a weird point in the draft, if I'm being honest. Again, we look at their data, which I clicked on the wrong window. Last year was Chase Davis, who I keep forgetting about for whatever reason. I'm always like, who did the Cardinals take a year ago? And before that, I was like Cooper Zerpe, Michael McGreevy, Jordan Walker, and then Zach Thompson, Nolan Gorman. You can see it's leaned more college of late. And then if you want to look at even their other high picks, the second round here, if it decides to load, they went college again last year. I really like Josh Baez. That hasn't worked out, but college. But, Wynn has worked. Tink Hens is interesting. Burleson, not as much. So they've been, pretty safe in terms of what they do. They are not safe. How should I phrase this? They're not stuck in any one route. You can see that they didn't have the second rounder a year ago, but it was very college heavy. We had a JUCO player here, and they didn't take Cam Johnson, who was unsignable, was their only high school guy. So I'm going to lean towards college because you're hoping someone who can get up, help the team, and get there sooner rather than later. When you look at the group of guys here, I think Weatherholt is ascending, and maybe, you got Kurtz at... You took Chase Davis. I think they'd go for the bat, just the best bat, and that's likely Kurtz. So I'm going to switch. Top bat, that's Kurtz. Angels. I'm not going to pull up and look at it because we all know it's been Neto, it's been Chanel, it's been the small school, quick to the matrix guy. Who's the small school guy here? It's Trey Yusevich. Now, I also heard that they like Weatherholt quite a bit. Yusevich is just more, I'm joking. I think Weatherholt being here, they jump. A guy who was in the 1-1 conversation before injuries kind of slowed down his year. Gives them another up-the-middle option. Probably better at second base. I don't know if he's really a shortstop, but just a player that slots in right there. So if you're Pittsburgh, you're picking ninth. It's coming down to, honestly, it's Rainier and it's Cags and it's Yusevich and it's Tibbs. And I kind of feel like someone's going to pop Tibbs in here. And we've seen Pittsburgh be the team that likes to maybe have some money manipulation with like a Henry Davis. And I think, like I said, I think Tibbs is a guy who a lot of people are sleeping on. I think he makes sense at this pick. I think we are going to see James Tibbs go in the top 10. He's been highly productive, extremely productive. Doesn't strike out hardly at all. Has power. Can play outfield, first base, and again potentially have a savings as well. So I think James Tibbs. Like I said, I wanted to slide him somewhere in that top 10 because I just think it is very plausible. Washington Nationals take sliding talent. That's at this point it's Jock. He's the known name. I like his ability as a pitcher, but I don't think. Listen, Ohtani is a unicorn. Jock has good stuff. The command is just non-consistent. He's a lefty reliever at best, or a mashing first baseman. Chase rate scares the heck out of me there for the Nationals. I think it is a easy pick, which then leaves Bryce Rainier. I'm sorry if you're a fan of the teams where I'm not showing, but it's like this is where it flows easily. Got Bryce Rainier here to the Tigers. They went prep a year ago. Rainier to some is the top prep player in this class. I think it just makes too much sense. And then you got Boston. Trey Yusevich is a value pick with their new front office coming from the Cubs, who have been extremely college heavy early on. San Francisco Giants can take the best two-way player in the class after they. And don't get me wrong, like I do have Jack rated ahead of Benj, but I think Benj is the one where there's actually a better chance of him being a pitching guy who's ascending right now, stands out. But they've taken back-to-back two-way guys, so Carson Benj, why not here, right? So then this gets you to the Cubs, and the Cubs are in this situation where, having done the live draft show a year ago, Cubs fans badly wanted them to go prep, and I thought they made the right choice with Shaw, and I'm pretty sure that is held. You got to think college. Seaver King is a high contact type sitting there. Cam Smith is from Florida, had a productive year and was great on the Cape. Brody Brecht is starting to perform well. Ryan Waldenschmidt, Christian Moore. Sorry, I'm assuming Nick Kurtz just homered based on my text from my co-host. But so it's like college players, and again, the Cubs are one where I think it is valuable to just go look at the data. So last year's Cubs draft, After Shaw, you can see that they didn't take a high school player until the 6th round. Crico, Sanders, Rivera, who was a senior, Jackson, Wiggins, all names. Like, these are pretty solid names. People who are known, been followed for a bit. They didn't, invest as heavily. And then if you go back to the previous draft in 22, Cade Horton, they did go right here. They spent quite a bit on prep in the middle. And that's the kind of thing. Like, you can find prep talent in rounds 2 through 4. It's harder to find proven college performers. It's hard to find safety. So when I look at the group here, and you look at Shaw, you look at Horton, I don't know if there's necessarily a type that you can look at those two players and see, especially because they're very different players. But I'm going to make a bold. Is it bold? I don't know if that's really a bold call. We have seen them like guys who are, dare I say, ascending, players who are playing better and better, people who are jumping out, and Ryan Waldschmidt is a name that is on everyone's lips right now, performing well in the conference tournament. Guy has been known for a while, but I think is that player who maybe isn't in the top 25 to 30 everywhere, but should be, and I think he's a player to keep your eye on. I think he's going in the top 21 picks. If not here, Milwaukee and the Mets both make tons of sense. Seattle, let's just show. Let's look at Seattle's first round picks. This is a very classic team for a long time. When Dipoto got there, okay, ready? College. Now it's high school. So, I don't know if we have a pattern of 1 to 5 and then 5, so he's going back to college. When you're looking at this class, at least to me, there is a prep hitter that stands out at this point. And if he was bigger, Slade Caldwell, I think, would be long gone. I think he would be the top prep hitter in this class if he wasn't probably 5'6". I know he's listed at 5'9", but I've been told that's just not the case. Maybe 5'7". There's some debate about height, but there's no debate on talent. And with Seattle having multiple picks, they can take the center fielder with some ceiling. Peter Bendix came from Tampa, so you have the Marlins here. So you don't actually want to look at what the Marlins have done, or we just go pitching, maybe even prep pitching after last year. But you want to look at the Rays, and this will save us time because the Rays will be picking again soon. I always forget that they never changed it. They're still Devil Rays in this system. So their first round picks recently, they took a guy I think most thought would be gotten by 19 in Taylor, and they came back with a comp pick, and you can see it's been a lot of high school players, and then a few spots of it's a lot of shortstops. It's up the middle performers. Look at the shortstops in there, and then there is some college guys, but especially as they were picking later and later, prep talent. Unfortunately, not a great year for the prep talent. It's just the way it falls. The depth to me isn't really there overall, and it's like William Schmidt that they haven't really done. Since Nick Bitsko, that team hasn't gone as heavy into the prep ranks of pitching. So if I'm looking, Caleb Bonmer maybe, but I think it is a situation right now where at this point in the draft, it is very clear that college hitters are kind of the special part. This is where college hitters are going to be shining. And there is one college pitcher. But I think when you look at Miami, and you consider what has and has not been successful, they have a deep bench of pitchers with the hitters in the situation they're in. I think Seaver King is a guy who could be an up-the-middle talent. We talked about all the shortstops. I don't know if he's a shortstop, but he could be a center fielder. Tons of contact, hard contact. Not always my personal favorite profile, but he makes a ton of contact. Milwaukee. So find your college hitter. when I look at the grouping of college hitters, I think Cam Smith is the guy here. Like, the fact he's still there makes this pretty easy. They are another team where if we go and we pull up first round picks, Brewers. By the way, I still stand. Brewers had the best draft in baseball a year ago, but okay, so they took Josh Noth with their competitive balance pick. I want to say a year ago, but you can see it's since Bryce Trang, it's all college players, and then it's under the current grouping, it has been very conservative. Though a year ago, they saved a lot of money and then came back and got a lot of prep talent. But I think Cam Smith is just an excellent value at this point in the draft. Now, Tampa, we talked about the situation they're in, kind of preferring some college hitters likely, looking at the college hitters that are performing well, and a ton of college hitters have gone off the board. So I don't know if this is getting nuts or not, but one thing Tampa has not necessarily developed yet, and I think it is, we see shortstops rise, we also see catchers rise. I think Walter Yannick here is, good power, good defense, does a lot of things very, very well, and I think he's going to go in the top 30. So I think him over Brody Brecht is the only thing I'm really debating, but they have been a little more hitter than pitcher grouping of the past few years, so rolling the dice right there on the catcher. One second here. I don't know how some people do it, how they manage to keep talking without coughing. So, in terms of the college hitter group, it's starting to get a little bit picked over. Stearns' MO in Milwaukee was college performers, often, hit over power types, and I don't know if he's a hit over power type, but I could see, up the middle talent. Another guy who I think we've seen a name arising is Christian Moore. I think he's going to see his name in that top 30, and there's just a point of where it is in the draft where he makes a lot of sense, and then Toronto falls into Brody Brecht because of teams with pitcher preferences ahead of them, and that's just a value selection to me at this point in time. I think, the Twins, they went prep a year ago. They've gone prep a few times recently. When we're looking at this class, one of the biggest risers of late has been Tyson Lewis, who is he's one of those guys who's grown into himself. Really good athletic tools, up the middle player, late bloomer. I think at this point in the draft, he makes a lot of sense to a team like the Twins, who aren't afraid to go prep and have taken some prep pitching. Baltimore loves power. They have gone. No, they also like extreme tools. Like Bradfield was ultimate speed guy, and there was some gamble there. And listen, a lot of people are off Vance Honeycutt, and I don't know if I'd have him the 22 player in this class, but he can play center field and be a 70 defender. He has massive power. This is a team that goes for defense, speed, and power. That's what Vance Honeycutt provides. If they can work with him, then they could end up getting a guy who's a top 5 talent at 21, or they might get a guy who's just a 4th outfielder type, but they have multiple picks, so they can afford to gamble. So Dodgers like speed. I'm probably going to keep this going to the Dodgers every single time. Where's his name? Kellen Lindsey, maybe the fastest guy in the draft. At this point in time, Dodgers, it reminds me of their first round pick from a year ago. Braves, this is an interesting situation because I don't know if there's any college pitcher I'm loving at this point in the draft. The Braves have gone so pitcher heavy, and I think, when they have gone prep, and they have gone prep pitching, so this is a place, they haven't always gone with like the name on the board, Schmidt or Caminiti here. They've sometimes gone with maybe a non-traditional or someone who's a little bit lower down. I really liked Owen Murphy. I don't think they're afraid of age, And I don't think Cash Mayfield is necessarily a down the board guy, but he's also in that group. So I think they have like lefties. I think Mayfield is an interesting lefty at this point in the draft. Now, the Padres, ceiling. Who is the high ceiling guy at this point in the draft? Who is someone who has, a ton of athletic traits and tools, and it comes down to Theo Gillen or was it Wyatt? There's my list over here of names. Wyatt, the shortstop. I'm trying to remember why it's his first. I believe it's his first name, Sanford. But I think Gillen is the California kid with a ton of athletic tools. Yankees last year went prep. They're another interesting one to kind of look at the history, because they were very conservative until Volpe and Lombardo. I can't do the alphabet in recent years. So if you're coming through and looking at the data and just looking at what they've done, Spencer Jones, Trey Sweeney, Austin Wells, then you got Volpe, and then Sycamore, and then Siegler, and then Schmidt, and Rutherford. It's a little more college than prep, so that's where I tend to lean towards with them. And then just in terms, again, go the other way with it and look at what they did a year ago. So they took they took George Lombard. Then they went with Kyle Carr, who was the JUCO. Then you can see they really kind of spread it around, and they also needed more money for Lombard. And then it was all college until the 13th round. So they just went heavy in terms of the college group after that initial pick. When I am looking at name value, guys on the board, interesting performers, it's like I'm trying to think, so I make sure there's always someone I forget. It's the nature of these. When I'm looking at lists and things like that, there's always someone that I inevitably forget to draft. The Yankees have been kind of all over the place, as stated, a little more college than pro, and they have liked bloodlines in the past, and that's why I'm going to give him Cam Anity. Another 2 years in a row with a bloodline prep player. Philadelphia, big, hard-throwing pitchers, athletic prep types, specifically outfielders if you got them. At this point in the draft, I don't know if I necessarily have the prep outfielder, but I think William Schmidt is, to most people, the top pitcher in this class. Big kid, 6'4", fits the bill for the Phillies. Houston Astros are going to take a college performer. I think Dakota Jordan still being on the board is a guy that I have put to them in almost every mock. I worry he's too passive, but there's good traits, good skills, and he's performed very well. Arizona Diamondbacks, another team that has kind of had a few different approaches in recent years. For a long time, early on in the rebuild, they were all ceiling. And I thought they did very well with a lot of the ceiling picks. And you go to last year, they didn't take a high school kid till the 20th round, and they took someone they knew they couldn't sign. And I mean, I did really enjoy large parts of this class here. If you go back and you look at 22, it's prep and then high school, and then it's the college in the middle here. So like, who's here? Like, they're gonna have multiple picks. They're gonna get a chance to maybe scoop up a few players, take some chances at this point in the draft. I think when I'm looking at someone who's maybe breaking out a little bit now, who a lot of people thought could be gone, Malcolm Moore. You can never have enough power. You can never have enough catchers. Can you stick a catcher? I'm not sure if anyone's sure about that, but he is playing well at the right time. And catchers rise. They always do. If you're Arizona, there are pitchers, there are interesting players. You're going to be able to come back and get someone else very soon. Texas. So Langford fell in their lap a year ago. Let's just be honest about that. They were all prep, and then they were all college, and now. They've been all Boris, maybe is what you want to say, but you can see it's definitely shifted to the college grouping here, since just ignore the Cole Raggins name there and Chris Cease. Those are for different reasons very painful if you are a fan of the Rangers, but they just won the World Series, so I don't think we have to feel too bad for Rangers fans. They've been a little more college heavy. Trying to get talent to the big leagues, get someone there quicker. There's a few names that stand out. Some performers. That's an interesting way to use my words, or not use my words, as it may be. I just debate with the college arms at this point, because the college arms I don't love. They're all right. I'm not sure I'm jumping up and down to get anyone here from that grouping. Caleb Lomavita is a guy who's very well thought of in a lot of places. You can never have enough catchers. I do kind of think Luke Holman's a guy who's going to sneak his way in as the next of that tier of pitching. So, and he's going to go probably in this next 10 pick range, but I'm going to put him here to Texas. Arizona, hey, they're back already. Like I said, they didn't have to wait long. And if you go back to the start of the year, Morlando was higher. He was my number one prep guy when we started this process in January. I think when you have all these picks, you can gamble. You can take a chance on a guy who might just be a first baseman, but is a pretty clean hitter profile. So Arizona, Baltimore, power. Tommy White is still sitting there. His stock's been all over the place, but if you're looking for power, that's a name that makes sense. Twins, I had them go prep shortstop earlier. Come back to this point in the draft. I want to make sure I'm not missing out on anyone too obvious. Do I give him another prep shortstop? Is Wyatt Sanford's kind of one of the bigger names? I'm not. It's a team that has spent some time drafting catchers. Good athlete. There are some risks in the profile, but I think Loma Vida makes a lot of sense here. A year ago, we did see the Brewers take some gambles on talent, and they did take a prep pitcher in round 2. A guy who had a lot of reliever potentially to his profile. When you're looking at some of the players who are sitting here at this point, Oki, Sterling, our names were kind of more preseason-y. Ryan Sloan is definitely someone who's been rising late, and if they decide to go prep again at this point, I think Sloan is the guy to get. Arizona's back. Lots of picks. Fun if you're an Arizona fan. Who would Arizona consider at this point? And again, this is where I'm like, I feel like I'm probably not taking someone or I'm missing someone. But all of these picks, Wyatt Stanford is rising. He should probably already be off the board. I think Cleveland, what I talked about earlier with them, Cape data. Mike Sirota has had a terrible year. Coming into the year, much like Mance Honeycutt, a pure center fielder who everyone thought would go in the top 10 picks. Terrible year at a small school. That is a deadly combination. But he was really good in the Cape, which is a much harder setting. So it's like, what are you going to buy on? What do you believe in? I think Cleveland has drafted guys. Hunter Gaddis comes to mind, who best performance during their draft year was in the Cape. So Cleveland going with back-to-back batters. Gosh, I'm trying to remember who I've even had Pittsburgh take so far. That's right, James Tibbs. So I had them save a lot of money. Caleb Bonmer, to a lot of people, would be the top talent at this point in the board. Save money, get a guy, maybe push down the board who you can get over slot here. Colorado Rockies. Chase Burns earlier. Who do we got that's kind of a fun, power hitter? Maybe slots in around here. Just a good name for them at this point in time in the draft. Again, if we go and look at recent history, let's go with 2023 Rockies. So, college performer. And there was a little bit of a surprising pick with Sullivan there. I think a lot of people thought he might go a little, like, he would be closer to 65. It's just so much college talent. And if you're the Rockies, I think you're a bad team. Gamble on Santucci. At this point in time, if he was healthy, he wouldn't be here. So a Santucci gamble, I think, makes sense. Speaking of teams to gamble, I had Royals taking the first prep player off the board. So you come back here, and it's who are the college performers that stand out? Who are the guys that might be a little more interesting, or a little safer, give you a little more security in this class? They have at points stayed a little close to home. Kalen Culpepper, third baseman, shortstop. Some people like him as a top 30 guy. I think it really comes down to positional view on him. I think of how highly you want to elevate him, but some logic to KC there. Oakland, Montgomery. A year ago, they came back and went prep hitter in the second round here, and you're looking at the prep hitters that are available. Wide variety of guys. Carter Johnson, I think, is up here, is one of the ones who a lot of people really like, and shortstops typically rise. Yeah, Kansas City back on the clock at 41. And probably a guy I should have already had off the board is Giangello. And he's interesting. He's rising. 41 is about as late as it gets. Colorado, let's go for another power hitter for them with Billy Amick here. Chicago White Sox. Pitcher. So who is someone who would make sense to look? I think Kyle DeBarge is a high contact rate, kind of their old school approach type of guy who hit a lot of homers this year. I don't know how much I believe in the power, but at this point in time, makes sense. Sliding talent. So we talked about earlier. Jacob Cozart was sliding catcher. You can never have enough catching. Angels. Kind of interesting. I don't know if I've really studied what the Angels do outside of the first round. So they went very heavy college a year ago, and heavy college, and 21 was the year they did all pitching, right? Yeah, heavy college. So college player right here. Feels like college pitching about here, maybe. Kind of like Aiden May in terms of like pitching prospects here. Just trying to bait him and Ben Hess, and I just don't think Ryan Johnson can be a starter, so he's not quite on the board for me at this point. I mean, I know a lot of people do like Drew Beam, Cunningham, Holton. Is there that's I don't know. I mean, Hartle has just imploded this year. If you believe in your ability to fix him, he's kind of interesting here. Let's give I'm gonna give him Cunningham. I think Cunningham is kind of the guy at this point who I don't know if he stands alone, but stands out in that current group. He's big. He has good Cape data. high level performance. Mets. Let's go with an unusual. I don't know if it's unusual or not. Blake Burke here. I think if you want a guy with some good data, high contact skills, but power, Blake Burke could make a lot of sense. And Pittsburgh took the money saver early. I think Levi Sterling, who maybe is another reclassifier. If nothing else, he's super young. Another player they could spend some money on. Brings it to Cleveland. Cleveland has a terrible history in the second round, by the way. Just has not worked out for them when it comes to most of their second round picks. I'm just trying to figure out. Because I'm always going to spend more time because it's my team, like fixating on who makes sense and who doesn't. What kind of like here? Ryan Prager, left-handed performer, did at the highest level. Good control numbers, definitely kind of fits the Guardians. Detroit, they went double prep a year ago with the new front office. Bat, right? Got the prep pitching starting to pile up. Noah Franco could be interesting here. Two-way guy, another reclassifier. I like him more as a hitter and a pitcher, but yeah. Boston, you can never have enough catching, or any catching coming up through your system. Reds. I think Joey Oki would do really well in their system with the way they develop. San Diego. Johnny King is another guy with some ceiling and youth. Yankees, Drew Beam is on the board, and that feels like their type of pick in round 2. Very safe, secure, and a quick mover. Cubs. I think they would potentially like Gage Jump. I think Jump could be in play to Cleveland. Another guy who could be performing late and performing well. Mariners. Have been more about the college hitters than pitchers. I think Braylon Payne is another interesting guy. I could have really put him to the Padres in terms of ceiling and production. I think Ben Hess is just a name that if you feel like you can straighten him out. We know the Marlins got a development that he should have been a top 30 pick if there wasn't the regression this year. Brewers went with the power hitting third baseman a year ago. Why not add more power? Tampa. Oh, there's probably some money to spend. Why do I not see that name? Did I give someone Carter Johnson and I totally blanked out? If I give someone Carter Johnson, I need to be done. No, it's not Carter Johnson. It's my list. Yeah, Carter Johnson. Why? Yeah, I gave him at the top of Yeah, wow. I should just finish because I'm apparently so tired I can't remember what I'm doing. So Tampa. Let's try to at least get through the second round before I hang it up here. I think the prep talent's kind of interesting at this point. There's also some bigger name college guys. If I'm just kind of looking at like best available, stuff like that, I do. Is Peyton Toll not in the system? Okay. Let's give him Ryan Johnson, high-level performer. probably a reliever, but very productive player. Let's see, Blue Jays took Brecht, so they get a chance to turn around here and take who am I missing? This is always the thing. It's like, who is the best player that I have not had taken? It's like, they gamble a little here, maybe try to get someone, or do they just go with more of the sure? I haven't pulled open the thing in a long time to look. See what their recent second round picks for the Blue Jays have looked like. So didn't have one. They took Tiedemann, who was a JUCO guy. This is the 2020 draft being so short. Now my computer doesn't want to load. Safety, and then big time money on Tucker Toman, and then didn't have one last year either, so a third round pick. In those years, it does look like they leaned maybe a little bit more college in this situation. I think Eli Serrano is kind of an interesting guy. Maybe not getting enough run as he should. There's some charge in his bat. Prep for them previously, so Carter Holton gives him a college performer who makes sense in this spot. Like, if they're going to go with a pitcher, I think Michael Massey is that guy who's been hurt and missed time who could profile there. If Massey wasn't gone there, I'd be giving him to the Braves. Who have a history. Let's give them another wake arm, maybe one they think they can help figure out. And then the Phillies. Maybe they go Griffo. You know what? Maybe they go Tyson Neighbors here. This is probably the best pure reliever in the class. Diamondbacks, who feels like they own this draft. They have so many selections. I think Griff O'Farrell is a really interesting player at this point. He's been a high-level performer. Texas, I think Chris Lavonis would make quite a bit of sense as a high school pitcher. And then the competitive balance picks. Move ahead, Tampa take Brecht, and then I believe gives a prep hitter. No, it was not. It was another. It was a two back-to-back college pitchers. Okay, let's go back to the draft. So I'm kind of looking at who is on the board here, considering who on a consensus board, like, are the guys, who are the names to know at this point. And Kuroda Grader, who good defender, can play multiple spots, good athleticism, can make a ton of sense at that spot. Derek Bender performed really well in the Cape and has a ton of power. Could be an interesting selection here. White Sox. Is there anyone from Illinois to draft? Braylon Dowdy, a lot of people like. I think this could be, he could be off the board already at this point, but he makes sense. Will Taylor is a nice buy low guy. Would have been a first round pick out of high school. Went to Clemson as a two-way guy. Hasn't quite performed, but you're hoping that focusing on one sport is going to make him only better. Dylan Drayling started the year hitting really well. I thought he had potential to be a first rounder. Still on the board here. Why not take the gamble? And Tegan Coons is another guy that a lot of people really liked, and Cincinnati could probably do some great work with the overall arm. And am I over generalizing the Tigers too much? I'm almost done with this whole thought exercise. So prep, college, prep. No, there were more. But Cape Performer for their one guy they had jump out. A lot of people like Charlie Bates. Maybe you can add their replacement, their center fielder, shortstop of the future, because it's not going well as it currently is. And then you've got the A's here. I'm going to make Hunter Cams, David Shields, Colby Shelton. I think they went back and forth high school, college a year ago with their first 4 picks. So let's give them Hunter Carnes, I should say. Has some really good athleticism and traits. And this last compensation pick to the Angels. Who is someone who is interesting. I think Jared Spencer might be a reliever, but he could be another kind of quick to the majors guy, all things considered. And yeah, that ends it. Thank you all for joining me on this fun little thought experiment. To anyone who ends up watching, as you can see, here is the should probably move slower list of players. Thank you all, and to anyone who did check this out, I appreciate.